People who had considered themselves incels involuntary celibates, but have since had sex. How do you feel looking back at your previous self? I never really considered myself an incel at the time, mostly because I'd never heard the phrase, but I was very incel-y in high school. I was the type of person who would hold a door open and then wonder why girls weren't falling into my lap. Turns out high school me wasn't that attractive, and nice isn't a personality. I fell very much into the Chads and Stas's frame of mind for a while. A lot of things changed really, but mostly I just grew up. It's a super childish view of things and just doesn't take into account that the people around you are, well, people. If someone held a door open for you, you wouldn't throw yourself at them. It's about the maturity in relationships. But seriously, duck high school me, proper nunt. Nice isn't a personality. Wow. I'm married with 4 kids. Never thought of it that way. I hope my kids will learn it one day. I'm so glad I had my teenage years in the late 80s and early 90s before the internet, let alone social media. Back then I couldn't get a date, let alone a girlfriend. I was, to be fair, hardly a catch, suffering from persistent depressive disorder, form an orderly Q ladies, and just generally having problems adapting. I was acknowledged to be a bit weird. I kind of accepted that it was my fault, which was bad for me short term but probably good in the long term for everyone concerned. Ultimately I had to sort myself out. But if I had had access to the sort of incel chais online around today, I fear I would have lapped it up with a spoon. A very large group of like-minded people telling me it isn't my fault. Question mark exclamation mark. I can stop moping and start hating? Fantastic. I would have been able to celebrate my status instead of reflecting on it and changing it. I'm sure I'd have been more than tempted. Social media has eroded, even destroyed, the concepts of privacy Gen X and before took for granted. For us to be an outsider, to be weird, was something you could do alone and grow out of, if you wanted to, of course. For the later millennials and beyond, even in quarantine, there is no alone, no solitude to reflect. Everything seems to be out there looking for likes and other forms of validation my adult mid-40s brain can't comprehend. Incels are a form of social validation that could not really have existed before social media. To get a network like that going would have been logistically and technically impossible on a scale beyond small outsider cliques in secondary schools. Now they are a movement. I somewhat pity incels because, but for 20 or so years, I could have been one of them. I honestly think social media is allowing the development of a whole Pandora's box of mental illnesses. Some are derivations of previously understood mental illnesses, while other are just being recognized, like gaming addiction. The lack of privacy is something that bothers me too. Like I'm 31, I grew up in the 90s and early zeros. In those days on the internet, the rule was you didn't share intimate details about your life or even your name, etc. unless you trust them after a long period of time, and even then it was a grey area. Now, people post every innate detail about their lives and careers online, not just for family and friends, but complete strangers to approve of. Edit. Can we all stop and appreciate the irony of a social media post speaking out against social media gaining a lot of social media attention? I was a being of pure hatred. I always thought it was someone else's fault. Even though I have had sex since that time, I think it's important to know that having sex isn't what vindicates you. Inceldom is a state of mind which requires strength and sometimes outside guidance to overcome. One of my friends essentially gave me a proverbial slap to the face on the subject and told me exactly what to do and how to become a more better person. In conclusion, I look back with regret and sorrow for all the people I hurt and made uncomfortable, because I know there are many. Edit. Thanks so much for the positive response. I've received many questions about what my friend did to help me. My friend was and is someone I looked up to, so I suppose that is an influence, but basically the thing that I needed to understand was that the fact the girls who I was constantly being rejected by were just people living their best life and me whining about it wouldn't change their preferences, so instead I worked on being happy without needing a GF and just letting it happen when it happens. There's always something to be said for talking to your friends, taking the time out of your day to listen to their troubles and offering advice. It really helped me, so I encourage you to do the same. Even though I have had sex since that time, I think it's important to know that having sex isn't what vindicates you. Inceldom is a state of mind which requires strength and sometimes outside guidance. To overcome this absolutely hits the nail on the head. Sex is not really as much of a part of the incel mentality as they think. They always talk about having sex, even once, as ascending past inceldom permanently. There's plenty of virgins out there who are not incels and plenty of people who have lots of sex who could be identified as incels. Edit. Thanks for the gold, my dude. You know, I don't know if this'll be buried, but I can actually share something valuable here. TLDR, it comes down to a lack of respect and ignorance to self-awareness. I did consider myself mostly an incel. Maybe more of a nice guy, but to my core I believed that girls were only after the chads and doucher bags. It was from the ages of 12 to 18, so a lot through my formative years. Here's the mindset: you've never had any awareness of the fact that girls don't indeed chase doucher bags, because that's all you've ever looked for. Whenever you see a pretty girl who says she is in a relationship, you immediately that her boyfriend is a terrible person. Though, not because he is, but because you yourself that you would just be so much better off with her than any other person. You won't see your own flaws, so you the worst of the guy. The truth is, it comes down to major insecurity issues and a lack of any male relationships. If you don't have many different male friends, you're going to that only the cocky guys get the girls. In reality, they are displaying charisma and confidence, something that is very attractive. Everyone knows this. It's a lack of awareness. It's easier to say that you yourself are too short, too ugly, too untalented, etc., than to admit that you have a crappy personality with little to no charisma. You won't find a happy, charming incel. If I could have gone back to myself and say, here's the deal. Girls don't look for one particular thing in a dude. They don't just want a tall dude or a wide-jawed dude. They want someone to be comfortable around. They don't want you to praise them as some higher being. They want to be treated with respect. But most importantly, they don't exist to have sex with you. They don't even exist to be your friend. They don't owe you anything. No one does. Just because you like them doesn't mean they have to like you. Don't try to sleep with girls by being their friend. Be grateful that someone sees any quality in your person for them to want to be around you at all. Be grateful that someone wants to be your friend. You are shallow, and you only care about looks. You saying it's about personality is all bullshit. That's it. I was a young angry kid. I'm glad I'm the man I'm today. I've had a lot of confidence issues which went away as I grew older. I went through many edgy phases, and it took all of these mistakes to learn them. So I feel empathy for incels, because they don't know any better. They don't know just how wrong they are, because admitting fault in self-improvement takes time and effort. Blaming and hating girls does not. Instead of hating girls, my only wish is that I started on self-improvement sooner. Edit. I'm thankful that this struck a chord with a lot of people. Many are asking what self-improvement means in this context. I believe it is subjective, but to me, it meant physical, mental, and emotional. TLDR. Hit the gym, get hobbies, make female friends for the sake of friendship, and do real kind things for the sake of goodness and kindness. More specifically, I started going to the gym after YouTubing, a lot of which exercises are the most important. A very helpful community like r/Askman is a wonderful community full of great advice. Whenever a post pops up asking how to gain confidence, the top answers are always hit the gym, for good reason. So I did. I'd have to say that losing upwards of 25 kilograms, 55 pounds, does change your own mental image. Suddenly, you feel like attractivity isn't as unattainable. Plus, you develop discipline and a much healthier lifestyle. That doesn't work for everyone, so I suggest investing time into a physical hobby. Cooking, learning an instrument, hiking, volunteering, dog walking, the list is endless. Seek personal improvement in something. Set goals and strive for them. With mental improvement, mostly towards women, it took a lot of self-reflection to get anywhere. It did help that I grew up with 4 sisters, so I saw how much each one of those handsome chads broke their hearts after being used. Suddenly, wanting to be alpha wasn't as appealing. Having sisters taught me how to behave around girls, but not everyone has that privilege. For that, I heavily recommend r/Ask Women. It in a way humanizes women/girls as it gave me perspective on their insight. They're real people with real struggles too. Imagine just wanting to exist and to go on about your own thing, and some helpful guy comes along. He's thoughtful and mindful, might even be a little funny. Then out of nowhere, he wants to spend more time with you, intimately. However, you are just trying to figure this whole life thing out, and sinking a lot of time and energy into a relationship isn't something you're looking for right now. You don't want to lead him on, so you politely decline his courtship. Too bad, you're a slut now. Also a whore. Also, you're now too fat for him, and that pussy probably loose anyway from all those douche bags you've been ducking, instead of those caring, nice guys. Have a rick pic, bitch. / that's a good case scenario. Bad/worst case, they get violent and either stalk you/alt you. These stories are a dime a dozen both on r/askwomen and r/guys. It also did help tremendously having female friends. The attraction may still be present, but friends you just want to exist with. Hanging out with them, seeing their struggles made me see that they didn't exist for my benefit. With emotional improvement, this is the toughest that is hard to come back from. You need to be quite mindful and self-aware. I was such an edgy kid. I'm talking dyeing my hair black and straightening it, creeping people out purely for their reaction, using a thesaurus wherever possible, had the girls are sluts chasing tall chads mentality. I think doing good things for people as much as possible helped the most here. Whether it was being a pair of ears to vent to, helping family out with anything, filling in instrument roles for other people's performances in music class, it all taught me what real kindness was. Real kindness does not mean being a basic, civil human being. To me, it means going out of your way to help someone with the expectation of nothing in return. Suddenly, annoying girls by calling them pretty and pure, then getting mad when they don't compliment you back, doesn't sound that kind anymore. Nice guys are actually unadjusted children currently incapable of self-reflection, rejection, and growth. All I can say is just focus on you. Don't focus on what you think people want out of you. I'm only 23, so I have a long way to go. Of course, I'm still human. I'm still capable of being an a-hole. However, humans are also capable of many selfless acts. Feel empathy and sorry for the incel whose only explanation to their terrible perspective on reality is blamed away on other people. I'm happy to talk to anyone further on self-improvement. My DMs are open. I also think a lot of guys hear self-improvement advice and think it means improving themselves to be more appealing to women, but that really misses the point. The goal is to be someone you're happy with, proud of, comfortable with, and confident in. Oh god, high school me wore fedoras and believed my superior intellect and science-based social theories were too much for everyone, and that I was really a James Bond type with my knowledge of various fields. Turns out I was gay as duck, but so deep in the closet my zip code was in Narnia, not really that smart in anything but too ADHD to focus past basic knowledge of anything, and in a desperate need of a new wardrobe. So deep in the closet my zip code was in Narnia made me snort. I was involuntarily celibate, in that I wanted to have sexual relationships, but never met anyone interested. I didn't put any effort in, so it was kinda my fault. My lifestyle just didn't lend itself to meeting people, so it was hard. When I finally did get out there and start having relationships, it was like a weight lifted off my shoulders. I realized that I had previously felt like an incomplete person because of my inability to connect with anyone, and that was holding me back from other things in life. Like I thought nothing else was worth pursuing because I hadn't properly entered adulthood yet. I kinda wish I'd just got on with it and pursued my other interests a bit more. I don't know why I had to wait. Maybe it was depression relating to me being lonely. Edit. Thinking about it a bit more, I put off dating for a long time because I thought I had to have my life in order first, which was why I waited until I hit some other life milestones. Once I hit those, I realized I had no excuse and finally started online dating. First one ghosted me, which hit me pretty hard after doing something positive for myself. Second one we really hit it off, and that's when I turned into a different person. It's worth the effort. This is a good description of me too. In high school and university, I wore very baggy clothes, had lots unkempt hair, I was smart and funny, so I had some friends, but no one particularly close, because I never made any effort. Looking back, there were certainly a couple women interested in me, but I didn't know how to pursue it, and was terrified at the thought of confrontational looking stupid, so I didn't. I just expected things to evolve totally naturally, but at some point, you have to do something that maybe scares you a little, or makes you feel a little uncomfortable, like discussing your feelings about a person with that person, or even just putting yourself in a position to be alone with them, even if it means you might not have anything to talk about. I would have told myself to not be afraid of what I didn't know, and to make mistakes when everyone is young and awkward anyway. Like everything else, it just takes practice, and most people are as scared and bad at it as you are worried that you will be. Whether it's high school or as an adult, male or female, people want the same thing: someone to be honest, forthright, and to listen to them. I'm good friends with a guy who used to be a part of a popular incel website, and he used to post on Reddit. That's actually how we met. He is still growing a lot as a person. He was incredibly angry. He blamed being ugly for his failure with women, and nothing anyone said could convince him that it wasn't that. It was that he thought that he would only be happy with a really hot girl. We hung out once and were talking about how he wanted to approach women out with us. We were at a very nice place and the neighborhood had plenty of high maintenance women, you know, the kind wearing expensive athleisure and who spent their entire lives dieting and doing spinning clees, expensive hair and nails, all that. Women who are really dedicated to looking good. There were also the girls that worked there and a few other customers about our age. He literally only saw the hot ladies. He was upset they'd never date anyone like him, someone who has pretty much no career ambition, doesn't want to conform by dressing or eating like they do, etc. And the average women and they just weren't women to him. It was really dehumanizing, because I saw him as an equal, and although he was sort of my friend, he didn't see me as human as he saw the hot ladies in Lululemon. He eventually saw a therapist. Actually, a few therapists. It was mostly to tell people he'd done it, but he stuck with it. Saw a few until one worked, and he started working on himself. We texted, emailed, etc. Hung out a few times, but honestly he wasn't working too hard on making friends, because he'd constantly say stuff that was belittling, or mean just to hurt me, or women in general, because he could. He also had spent too much time in black pill subreddits, because he brought it up on the one time I invited him out with my trivia team. A few months ago, before I had some major health issues and the pandemic kicked off, he got back in touch. He sent me a long email that was actually okay. He had briefly dated a woman, they had slept together, and then he realized he still actually hated women and her too, because she wasn't living up to his fantasy, and that no one could. He realized he had a lot of conflicting ideas, that women shouldn't depend on men for money, but they also shouldn't be too career focused, etc. Just a lot of bad stuff all rolled up into one. He had included a bunch of stuff I absolutely hated, like the fact that he still feels that women our age are past their prime and have cellulite. I basically didn't have a ton of energy to reply other than to tell him I hoped he kept working at it and wasn't dating anyone else until he got over actively hating women. Edited to I definitely didn't think so many people would read and comment on this. First, the reason I reached out to him was that he described himself as around my age, living in my town, and I could see he was getting pretty radicalized, and he admitted he was seeing the attraction in a lot of the stuff that was just straight up fascist, interest in trad wives, and white nationalism, supporting Christian Dominion type stuff despite being an atheist, etc. He also really internalized stuff from porn. He started watching it very early in life. Growing up he thought he'd be able to have women that looked like that, and they'd want sex that was like that, etc. That's what the email included, that he felt disappointed he wouldn't get the fantasy. He knew it was ducked up. He knew it was really bad. He just felt trapped into this gradual slide of his beliefs, and it was enabled by the internet, especially Reddit and YouTube. Second edit, I'm not going to respond to PMs to debate you about incels or incel related topics. There are plenty of good resources out there, you need to seek them out. I've seen babies with cellulite. Edit, less glib, I know exactly what you're talking about here. I've been chubby my entire life, and I feel like I've developed a sixth sense for the kind of guy you're talking about here. The kind that desexes women whom he considers below his standard. They're everywhere. Second edit, I'm extraordinarily pleased that my most upvoted comment of all time is about my true pain in life, fat babies. I suppose I was an incel from 23 to 27. After leaving the military, I was depressed, underweight, socially isolated. I never got fat or super into gaming as is stereotypical, just worked a lot, hung out with my dog, smoked way too much weed, and just sort of forgot how to interact with women. Which was probably for the best. Most of my relationships prior to 23 were unhealthy at worst, meaningless at best. Ending that era of my life was a long struggle that took concerted effort towards trying to be more positive and social. One big event was buying and learning to ride a motorcycle at 27. Sort of shocked me out of my routine, opened my eyes to the fact that life was not a downhill slide from the adrenaline filled days of 18 to 22. That new experiences were waiting to be had. Eventually I met a woman that I just couldn't bear to have the usual flirt until I awkwardly distanced myself experience with. I forced myself to not to my mind wander when we talked. I powered through all anxiety to call and text her daily. I even eventually would do crazy stuff like get dressed up nice and go to dinner with her, not something I could have ever seen myself doing at one point. So I'm married now, still have some issues, but very happy. So I'd say nothing to me, just gotta live through it kid. Similar experience here. I didn't identify as an incel, but looking back I think I adopted some of those beliefs/tenets. I thought women only wanted handsome men or men with charm and confidence. I liked playing EverQuest and World of Warcraft, other games, and I spent a lot of time hanging out on Portal of Evil laughing at chisty websites and chistier people. I think that made me feel better about myself and superior to others, despite putting absolutely zero effort into exercise or improving my body. It was easier to belittle people on the internet and feel good that at least I wasn't Lord Rixington Fear underneath it, although I despised myself and my ineptness. That kept me single through most of my 20s. I had a girlfriend here and there but never scored, just lacking the confidence to go through with everything. The big event for me was going to university at 26 over 27 after years of working and travel. I made friends with a beautiful international student from Indonesia and asked her out after requisite 2 weeks of hemming and hawing about rejection. She declined, but we remained friends, and I realized how much work she was putting into herself, fashion sense, lots of exercise, healthy eating, and I sort of took that to heart. If she makes time for the gym, why don't I? So I started focusing on improving myself, and a year later met and began dating my wife. It was that realization that I should improve myself in the way that those I desire improve themselves that kicked me out of years of laziness and little effort into self-improvement. Finally my time to shine. Not sure if I should be proud of that. I found my first incel forum at 13, even though it didn't have that name. But the ideologies were the same. I was miserable back then, didn't have many friends, my grades were chiz, and I got bullied a lot. This made me spend most of my time inside playing video games and hating life. I hated everyone, because all of my experiences with people were being bullied. I started being bullied at 4, and it didn't stop until the middle of high school. The forums were full of people thinking the same. It made me feel secure, like I was right underscore. I didn't have to walk the hard way to improve myself. They told me I could just let go. Nobody will ever love you, so why try? You are a social reject, so why try? So I stopped showering, stopped eating, stopped caring for myself. I let myself go because these groups told me no matter how hard you try, you will fail. I became jealous of people being more popular than me, jealous of my sister because she was so pretty and accepted herself. She had a boyfriend, but all girls hated me. At the time I didn't see that. Would I have just showered, girls wouldn't have been disgusted by me. I hated immigrants, gay people, women, handsome guys. Everyone I saw as more accomplished than me. It was a hard time getting out of this mindset, but eventually I made it. Turned my grades around, made some friends, and went to therapy. I even have a boyfriend now. Oh, the irony. When I see incels or people like that, I just can't hate them. They are in pain and struggling and need help. Depression is one hell of beast and some people lash out in anger. So when I look back at my old self, I really just want to give him a hug and tell him everything is going to be okay. Edit. Sorry for any spelling or grammar mistakes. Do feel free to point them out. I'm dyslexic. I was the sister in a similar situation, 6 years older, so by the time my brother began to live in his video games and cave-like room, I was already in college. I remember him saying things about women not liking him, but they like the assholes, but not the nice guys like him. I did the typical sister thing and told him just to ignore girls if they like someone else and see if other girls like him. High school is tough. One of the girls he dated dumped him and burned his fedora. This was usually over phone conversations since I was moved out. He went through some really hard times, chronic genetic illness and missing school. I think that's what changed him. Now he has the most adorable sweet girlfriend and has more humble and mature than I've ever seen him. He did date men as well, but landed on the gem of a lady he's with now. She's even really into video games with him. He went from I respect women and they still date assholes to I respect women because they are people. I remember when I first found the incel community, it was actually a pretty helpful place. It was more of a support group for people who were unattractive, socially awkward, etc. There wasn't any of this nice guy, give sex bullshit. Everyone knew why they were involuntarily celibate and just wanted to vent frustrations and get support. It was really good for my confidence. Then the toxic masculinity started to creep in and took right over, as everyone knows. I fell on the incel line of being not unattractive, but personality wise, all I did was play video games. I didn't have anything interesting about my life, and so women just weren't interested in me, and I never put myself into situations to meet people. New job with great people, I started to do different things. Played hockey for the first time at 30. Joined the group for a couple of traveling tournaments, where we got absolutely Vegas type plastered for weekends in different cities. Job is very much a hangout and chat type job, security, so talking with the women on the team on the regular starts removing the air of mystique I had built around them. Got my motorcycle license and did a solo trip across the states from Canada to the Mexican border and back that same year. Started doing Tough Mudders, buying a season pass and traveling to any of the ones I could drive to. Then I got Tinder and just started going on dates. Had a few good, few bad, and then met my wife. All in all, I ultimately blame a World of Warcraft addiction that held me back in my early 20s to my late 20s and just missed out on those socially formative years. You are the kind of person I wanted to answer the question. There are a few here that have said that they were actually active in the incel community and have since left. I think I'm going to compile them and publish them because they are testaments that need to be read. I had this condition called phimosis, which meant my foreskin didn't retract, so if I had ever tried to have sex it would have been really painful and probably ripped it. Because of that I never allowed myself to get into situations that might get sexual, and even though I was purposely avoiding them, part of me still felt like there was nothing to avoid and no one was interested anyway. When I was 18, for the very first time a girl made it known she was interested in me, but TBH, even if I could have done anything I wasn't interested in her anyway. 19. I used Tinder for some reason. Match a girl, start talking to her and it's awesome. We really like each other, but I could never arrange to meet up for fear of it turning sexual, and I was too embarrassed to tell anyone my circumstances. Inevitably, she gets bored of nothing happening, moves on. I'm heartbroken. 20. Nothing really happened here. 21. Meet another girl on Tinder, pretty much the same situation as when I was 19. We like each other, she gets bored, goes for someone else. I'm heartbroken. 23. Me and girl from work start getting close. I get into my first ever relationship with her, a month or so it turns sexual, and I let her know what's going on and that I need to fix it. She's cool with it. About a year after my initial doctor's appointment, I get a circumcision at 24. 2 months later we lose our virginities to each other. 25. Still with her now. Been just over 2 years. Edit. I was laying in bed with my cat pretty much sprawled across my face and neck while I typed what I assumed would be a throwaway comment. I did not expect this. How come you didn't get a circumcision earlier on, if I may ask? I used to be the creepier weirdo who, by the time I graduated, had asked every single girl out. I literally had no idea what I was doing wrong. I was practicing all the classic southern gentleman things that I was supposed to, yet having no luck. Think Mladdy, but only slightly less cringy. It wasn't until I got to college and went on a period of self-discovery that I knew the error of my ways. The first, and most important, concept that I learned was that women aren't sex dispensaries that you deposit nice coins into and get pus in return. They have to choose you. I still kept doing nice things for girls because that's the way I was raised, but I removed my expectations for getting anything in return. The second concept was making myself attractive, and it was a lot easier than I thought it would be. A nice basic buzzcut suddenly turned my oily mop of hair into a clean, presentable style. Went clean shaven on facial hair too, because all I could grow was a piddly pubic hair look in a beard. Got a benzoyl peroxide solution to start working on the acne. Marching band was my form of exercise to stay fit and avoid the freshman 15. It's amazing how the problems we create for ourselves can get in our own way. Such a quotable response. Women aren't sex dispensaries that you deposit nice coins into and get pus in return. This got a snort laugh from me and helped me understand why some nice gestures feel nice and others feel likey. I'm a woman and I remember being weirded out by some, in a vacuum, nice gestures by men/boys all the way back to high school. I think this hits the nail on the head. If I could tell the gesture was transactional, it made me feel gross, and I experienced some serious cognitive dissonance, because aren't you supposed to feel good when someone does something nice for you? Question mark. It's amazing how the problems we create for ourselves can get in our own way. I need this tattooed on my forehead. I think I was maybe just a late bloomer. I had lots of female friends and was a bit cheeky before it was cool. When I went to uni I realized that rejection wasn't as bad if I could laugh about it with my mates after. When I lost my V, it wasn't the big deal I thought it would be. Once that barrier was broken though, I really came into my own and never looked back. When you start coming into your own after coming in someone else, something has gone wrong. Never considered myself an incel. Wasn't a word that was commonly used. Just an ugly, socially inept horny teenage boy who girls didn't like. Now I'm an ugly, socially inept adult with a personality, and that seems to be working well so far. I didn't lose my V card until I was like 20, maybe 21. University was a blur. I used to not hate women, but just wouldn't really bother with the pursuit because in my mind, I'd already summed up the result: rejection. I was also, like, super ducking thirsty, which nobody ever wants, and yeah, it was a bad look all around. Eventually became 0e depressed, worked through some things with hallucinogens, yada yada yada, and now here I am, a little wiser and a little less annoying a person. TL. Doctor, I matured and old me was a rickhead. Don't do drugs. YMMV. Dude, really feel you on the excessively thirsty thing. That will duck you up. Not an incel, but also not exactly a playboy, and I have a hard time understanding/striking the balance between letting them know you are available and not being a thirsty weirdo. It is for sure better to err on the side of less thirst, though BCR prevents you from being a creep and B seems less desperate, which is cooler. I have ducked up on that in recent times, which was the upsetting BC. I thought I was past that. Still a virgin, but I used to call myself incel a couple years ago because I only knew it meant involuntary celibate. I didn't know any of the stuff about the black pill and the rampant misogyny. As soon as I actually discovered what it meant, I stopped and felt ashamed. Also, I did have a phase in high school during which I did believe some incelish stuff, but I just didn't have enough confidence to ever talk to someone I was interested in, so I never said any of the stuff out loud anywhere. We were all major idiots in high school. Definitely don't feel bad for being one too. All that matters is who you are today and in the future. I was a virgin at 20 to 21, but wanted to have sex sooner. There was some bitterness in my heart towards women. I got on with working, playing rugby and not being fatter, and it turned around. Learned to have a conversation, not just trying to chat someone up or show the world how super I was. Married, 2 children, doing okay. Edit, more upvotes than all of my Redditing combined so far. Thanks for all the comments, I did my best to reply. Funny to think this gained some traction when I just chucked it out there before bed. Hey, good for you, man. Not a dude or an incel, I know, but I have intimate knowledge to the creation of one. So I dated this dude that was probably a bit autistic, no issue on the surface, I get that. His behaviors were bizarre. I was coming out of a highly abusive relationship, only other one I'd ever had, so I saw him as quirky rather than someone who clearly needed help. He wasn't good with women because he would get super focused on topics and use the same jokes/phrases over and over, which didn't bother me, I'm pretty chill. Well, we dated a couple years and his best friend's wife left him. The dude started going to MGTOW inches, telling my boyfriend things like virgins are the way to go and to get a woman young, like 18. We were in our 30s. Well, my boyfriend listens to this and starts acting weirder. He tries to veto my clothing when we go out, tells me I'm less valuable since I've had kids, pulls a gun on me because I didn't listen, insists I quit my job so I can take care of him. And that's just a few. Of course, I'm unintentionally plotting my escape. I make friends outside the house, ones that he follows me to without telling to make sure no dudes try anything with you. I meet another man. We become good friends. He's a cool guy and just lets me talk sometimes. The boyfriend decides I'm cheating, says we are going to have an open relationship. Okay, cool. I duck this dude friend. He goes to a party but doesn't bring anyone home and no one wants to be around him too much because he's insulches. He finds out I ducked this guy and loses his mind. He throws a fit, breaks a bunch of my stuff, threatens to kill me, and I flee to my new friend. He starts saying I was a cheating slut and he did nothing wrong, that he was devoted and took care of me, etc. He still hasn't found anyone and is lonely and bitchy. I ain't even mad though, because the support and kindness my friend gave me led to us getting married last year. So yeah, incels I guess. Pulls a gun on me, harlop. I was raised by incredibly cruel people, my aunt and grandmother. They had me absolutely convinced that I was very ugly, pathetic, and just a total loser. They even hinted that it'd be better off gay, as if it's a choice, because I didn't have a shot with women. They also made me feel that as an immigrant I was considered weird and strange and women would consider me less of a catch because I was a foreigner. Since I believed all of that, I had a real resentment toward women. And like many young people I protected my pain with anger. Eventually I discovered that I was not ugly at all and in fact was considered quite attractive by many, which I never fully could wrap my head around. And guess what? Turns out women like guys with exotic accents and viewed my foreignness as interesting and even exciting. I'm just glad I realized all of that before I had become too entrenched in my anger or wasted too much time. Glad you turned out okay from that. That's how serial killer Ed Kemper turned out the way he did. I had a span of self-induced loathing in my early 20s that had me in the same mindset as incels. Minus the whole urge to kill and harrow, but I blamed women for them not wanting to talk to me. For rejecting me. I believe someone up above talked about maturity and who they were in high school. I too was a d-bag. Decent looking guy but chiz person. Shallow is a perfect adjective for my high school self. That whole viewpoint or self-importance carried into my early 20s and it didn't work out well. It wasn't until I was 27 over 28 and started getting into philosophy while getting stoned off Maya because I was escaping my problems. Philosophy changed me. It made me self-reflect and forced me to be honest with myself, to hold myself accountable and also to forgive myself for all the mistakes I have made and to realize I have the power to change/improve myself. That's when my incel/women blaming ended. I'm glad I survived that period of my life. I think a lot of what goes on is how relationships in our society are portrayed. Speaking for myself, a guy that grew up in the 90s, it always seemed that every movie the woman was the one needing saving and the way to a woman's heart was to be a gentleman. This whimsical fairy tale taught to us at an early age sets people up for false expectations of both roles in a relationship. There really is no teaching about how hard relationships are, and that no relationship should be the reason you are happy. If I was taught that growing up maybe things would have been different for me, but that was a big personal problem for me. Trying to validate my happiness through a relationship left me wide open to get taken advantage of and pushed further into that toxic mindset. But looking back, I'm glad I went through it. I finally found the love I've always wanted, and I couldn't be happier. My relationships feel more real now, and that I have a new realization and perspective on my relationships. I definitely look at women a lot differently now, and have made multiple reach outs to some classmates from high school to apologize for how much of a pig I was. Nunt is the perfect high school nickname for me. But your incel mentality seems to come from the self-hatred / denial of one's own faults / flaws. Women are not sexual objects. You don't deserve their attention. They are human beings and deserve that respect. Once those moronic incels realize they wasted the best parts of their lives blaming others for their own failures instead of making changes, that will be their greatest regret in life. Knowing that all along they had the power to change their situation. PS. If you made it this far, wow, I'm impressed. Thanks for taking the time reading my comment. If anyone wants to chat, DM me. I know during these troubling times, lack of connection / social interactions constrain mental health. If you need / want someone to talk to or just vent to, hit me up. I have nothing better to do but chat it up and make friends. Alright. Cheers. Edit. Holy cheers. Thank you, kind stranger, for the gold. My first gold. Unreal. I've seen questions like this often, and most of the real answers boil down to something similar to what you've said. That eventually you accepted it was your own internal issues and started treating women as people. But I'm curious. Obviously it is more difficult to do this than to continue blaming women. What do you think is the difference between the people who choose to grow and those who stay in their mindsets? Why do you think some are able to pull themselves out while others just dig themselves deeper? I looked back and realized how many times girls showed an interest in me and I didn't notice, or I self-sabotaged without realizing what I was doing. I eventually learned to get out of my own way, but I'm still working on not pushing away people because I'm scared if I don't reject them, they will reject me, kind of thing. I can get behind this one. For some reason being rejected seems to be the most humiliating thing ever. 24 years old and still scared af. I wasn't really an uncle as I started having sex after high school, but man, I had no idea my tendencies were so bad and why I couldn't ever get a girl. I was such an idiot. I still don't date much, but it's totally a conscious thing. After I worked on myself and tried to be a genuinely nice person, I found I could and did easily get girls into bed for a while. But I found I like less dramatic white life, and it's way better to wait around and just meet someone you really enjoy, rather than try to get out there and just date anyone to have new experiences. I have hope for the incels. Some of them just don't quite get it yet. Some of them deserve to be alone until they change. I wasn't really an uncle as I started having sex after high school. You couldn't have been an uncle. Uncles only have sex at family gatherings, if I remember my childhood correctly. People who didn't have sex, but were not capital incels. And also a lot of people with really ducked up ideas of what teenage sexuality is. I was an incel because I didn't have sex until I was almost 17. What in the hell? And a lot of the former incels who have responded are still talking about sex as if it's a commodity and women are objects. Gross. I'm a 30-year-old adult male virgin. I suppose you could call me an incel. I've never been kissed, nor have I held a girl's hand. I'm very ugly. I don't think that there is anyone in this thread, or possibly on this site, who understands living this way better than I do. Life is very sad, hence my username and comment history. I could write a book about my life, and being an ugly virgin, there's an endless amount of material to draw upon. I don't think that there is anyone in this thread, or possibly on this site, who understands living this way better than I do now. Don't worry. Plenty of people like that on this site. During my prolonged dry patches years ago, the term incel wasn't well known, or even existed. But I recognized some of my old self in them. I was bitter and angry at women. Later, I went to the gym, took my career seriously, and jumped into online dating. This is where I was successful, and where I was a bad man. I met many attractive women. These were the kind of women who a few years ago would have ignored me or friend-zoned me. Now they were getting to the tail end of their 20s, or in their 30s, and starting to feel the need to settle down. That's where my revenge took place. All of a sudden these bitches who would never take a nice guy like me seriously saw a potential husband in me. So, I played the nice guy, went on dates, let them believe I was serious, and eventually we'd have a few weeks of dates and sex. Then it was time to move on to the next one. Breaking hearts along the way. I figured these chicks deserved it. I figured I have the same appetites as a handsome man. So if the woman would hop in the sack with a handsome guy for fun, then I can lie a bit to get her to hop in the sack with me. I had a goal of the number of women I wanted to bed. Eventually, I matured, settled down, and my past is just seen as being a player. But there was some real anger in me. It wasn't all just about the sexy times. Although the sexy times were fun, I went through a similar period of what I can only call misogynistic anger, which I didn't even recognize as such at the time, characterized by being a 2-bit player and treating women as conquests. In my case it wasn't triggered by a dry spell, but by coming from a manipulative relationship that stressed me greatly. I felt pretty vengeful towards women in general after that. A woman brought me out of that just by showing me a relationship that was nurturing instead of manipulative. We are still together, and I expect we always will be. Till what this trending word means. Me too. I always thought it meant incandescent celery. Thanks for this thread. I read one on Reddit about a guy whose son became full incel and that haunts me now. It's my biggest fear to raise a son who hates women, no kids yet but hoping. Good to see that some people come out of that. I remember that thread. I follow the incel community out of curiosity and it's so obvious to me that most of them are just young guys that haven't gotten laid yet rather than being the deformed hunchbacks they perceive themselves to be. This entire thread is full of people who were never incels. Try sorting by controversial. But I get you. It's really depressing to see a thread like this. Think you might get some good perspectives or at least some insights from fellow incels and all you get are a million not an incel but removed. Upvote for visibility. I dated a dude earlier that was pretty much an incel, although he did use escorts for sex. He called himself a feminist, but he hated girls who he would think were stasses. He thought women didn't like him because he was ugly. He did have a lot of issues with depression etc. He couldn't wrap his head around that the reason girls didn't like him is that he didn't take care of himself. He was lazy and just played games all day. I had to force him to shower. He had a job but would call in sick almost every day. His mum was a helicopter mum. I went over to his house for the first time and his mum was frantically changing sheets on his bed. He just got nasty at the end. He would tell me my spiritual beliefs were wrong and laugh at me. That was 2 months of my life I will never get back, and I've been off the dating scene since, as I'm exhausted and disgusted I'll let myself into that situation. I really hope he ends up realizing here's the problem, and not everyone around him. In high school I was 300 pounds and my only conversations were about video games, specifically World of Warcraft. I was nice to lots of girls. Thought I was the perfect gentleman like my mom taught me to be. I had female friends. However, I never could get a girlfriend or a girl interested in me except for one time a girl dated me for 4 hours as a dare and then publicly dumped me in the lunchroom. This caused me to start to despise women. Eventually, I learned it was my terrible hygiene and excessive weight that was causing girls to not like me. I started going to the gym and got into great shape. Lost 110 pounds, got a new style, started dressing and smelling good. All of a sudden girls couldn't get enough of me when I went to college. Due to all the rejection I had in middle/high school, I actually developed an addiction. I would date a different girl every month and was notorious for one-night stands. I looked at women as a game to fill my missing void. I couldn't get enough. This went on for years until I realized I had a problem. Now years later I'm married and in decent shape, but not gym obsessed like before. I still see myself as both people. The guy obsessed with video games and food, and then the guy who loves working out and partying. As I type this, it is odd reflecting on how I lived 2 different lives over 15 years. Has anyone ever really gone that far and bounced back? Oh, you'd be surprised. I have been of the edge to an insane spiral before. Like zero empathy chiz. It was horrible. Learned a lot from it though. Once I actually had contact with people again, that all stopped. Isolation makes your brain go really weird. Social media really isn't a substitute. I would never refer to myself as an incel because I hate the term and have no interest in identifying with it or the other things that come with it. I don't like anything to do with it. I've had sex several times, but have mostly led an involuntarily celibate life because women aren't very interested in me. It was 11 years between losing my virginity at 17 and having sex at 28, and that girl lied to me about having genital herpes. I just stopped talking to her and got tested. It's been 2 or more years since the last time I miss cuddling and would like to have some sex, but it is what it is. I don't need it like a lot of others seem to. I'm used to not having it and get by. It's hard on my depression, and I hate online dating and the shallowness, but I don't hate women or anything. Yeah, I don't think you're an incel. I think it's more buying into the whole thing, not just not banging women. I had this exact mentality a long time ago, before incel was a word, before Chad/Stussy was a thing online. I'm talking early 2000s. My friends refer it as my "I'm a piece of chiz" phase, because I would always call myself a piece of chiz, ugly, etc. Never understood why I couldn't get girls, despite reaffirming that I'm a good guy / lolna seguis amirite / but looking back, I must have come across as a creepy nice guy. Whenever I read up on the incel movement / subculture, the memes, all that chiz, I just sadly chuckle and think, damn, that was exactly it. I hate how I relate to that stuff. I was in the blackest darkest depression possible and believed sex to be only worth of man. All of the associated emotions, anger, envy to my friends. It was bad. Anyways, to answer your question, cringe. Lots of cringe and profound regret at lots of wasted time and anger during my younger years. Good lord, I was an a-hole. I despise that guy. Has an embarrassment to me. Somehow, it never occurred to me until I had sex that women are literally just normal people like you or I. They laugh, they swear, they fart, they chiz, they even gasp, enjoy sex. It, vulsels and facusels. High IQ. I was 6'4" and fat until I bought a bike that made me 6'4" and skinny. I just had less sexual intercourses when I was a 6'4" fatter, so you can call me an incel. So I lost my virginity at 23. Around 19 to 21 I floated on the edge of incel circles. I had friends on Tumblr that would go on to become incels. I followed people who spoke of misogyny as if it was justified by the way women treated them. I browsed red pill sites and even read a few articles from Return of Kings while nodding my head. At the time, I viewed relationships and sex as a transactional experience. An experience that I would never be able to engage in because I was ugly, I had trouble connecting with people, I lived paycheck to paycheck, and was still at my parents' place. There was no way anyone could ever be attracted to me because from a transactional point of view I had nothing to offer. I had never had a whole lot of women in my life. Most didn't talk to me. At the time I thought it was because I was boring and ugly. Nowadays I know it's because I was a rude little chiz who wouldn't make eye contact. My only major contact with women had been with my mother and my sister, and both of them for dumber than nails. Subhuman trailer trash. My mother is a lovely lady, and I regret ever viewing her this way. My sister could still probably make for a good episode of Jerry Springer though. It got to the point where I had surrounded myself with people who had an underlying disdain for women. We talked a lot about social power structures and how they were designed to keep people like us down. We talked about how we thought it should be, creating scenarios where women existed to please us, not the other way around. We acted entitled and like we were cheated by life with our bad looks and lack ambition. We used dramatic examples of male deaths such as war to prove to ourselves how much worse men have it than women. Sometimes horrifyingly sexist comments were made, but we would ignore them as someone just venting. Jimmy didn't really want to drug and take advantage of his roommate's girlfriend. He's just saying that because he wants to be loved by his roommate's girlfriend and he sees no other way to make that happen. We thought of these as harmless fantasies. Around 23 I tried LSD for the first time with a guy who I knew from high school but had never been close with. We started hanging out more and I started spending a lot of time at his place with him and his girlfriend. I got pretty close with his girlfriend on a platonic level and she was probably the first woman I ever fully viewed as human. Not an object of my fantasies who should cater to my every whim, but a human being with dreams and goals and self-disappointments. I met a girl online around this time as well. We started sleeping together. She was a disaster of human being. She had gone through a lot growing up and now she was so deep in a depression that she would abandon people who treated her well to spend time with people she hated because she thought that was what she deserved. It was a feeling I understood well, and I began feeling for her as a human being. What we had was not healthy, but it was an important learning experience. In a lot of ways she confirmed all the horrible things me and my friends had thought about women, but having gotten to know her I had backstory as to why. Having these two women in my life, very different women mind you, got me to start seeing them as people. I started arguing back when my friends would say sexist things because now they were talking about people that I respected and cared about. I cut off contact with those people. Life went on. I no longer speak with either of the girls in question, but am in a ridiculously happy relationship. Occasionally I go lurk on my old friends, less so nowadays, and check out my old internet stomping grounds. They are a cesspit of misogyny and that weird us versus them mentality that permeates the worst parts of humanity. Bitter men in their 50s take advantage of young lost boys in their teens to convince them that the male/female dynamic is weighed against them. Radicalize them enough and maybe you end up with another Elliot Rodgers. I'm convinced what those young boys need more than anything is a couple of female. I feel weird using this word due to the disdain it was often said with among my old friends and some perspective. Maybe that's a personal bias, because it turned out that's all I needed. It's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. You expect that you deserve a girlfriend, probably don't at that point, because everyone starts out bumbling and inept. The girls too, then get rejected, and are surprised, and angry and hurt. So then you expect to get rejected, and give off an angry, rejected vibe which kind of scares females, and maybe rightly so. That vibe keeps women away, and you take it as further proof of your predicament. It's eccentric really. Once you are truly okay and content being alone, then you will be confident enough to give off the right vibe. You can take the risks necessary to find someone and take it more lightly because you are a less fragile person. It can't be faked, and it's something others can practically smell. The cologne of anger and desperation doesn't smell good on anyone, male or female. It also doesn't mean arrogance or fake bravado, which is that angry desperate vibe in disguise. It comes with work on yourself, maturity and taking responsibility for your quality as a person. Congratulations to Op for doing that work. Just so you know, female is best used as an adjective, as in when you wrote male or female later on. If it's a noun, just use women not females. It is really sad that they don't realize that if you identify as an incel, people will treat you as an incel, while if you identify as Jake, a guy that happens to be short, people will treat you as Jake, a guy that happens to be short. I used to read incels. It was the best sub ever before Reddit banned it. Reading the replies on here, people aren't understanding what an incel is. A true incel is an unduckable dude. 85 IQ, bald at 21, 5 feet 3, ducked up teeth, weird bone structure, etc. We aren't talking about these fake incels on here who are awkward teens. No, you were never an incel, just lazy. The incels would routinely talk about facial reconstruction surgery to fix their chin/jawline. They'd talk about hair growth regimens, working out, gymsels lol, etc. And the one thing they hated the most, fake incels, like the current top upvoted comment who hit it off on date number 2 lol. Because he got out there. Bitch please. Incels don't get out there and get dates. They need years of work on their body and then a lot of luck. A bunch of them just paid hookers to screw them to get beyond being virgins. Man, I hate you people sometimes. You banned this group of losers and now you want feel-good stories where fake losers tell you how smart you were for supporting the ban of that sub. You are what the incels hated, and for good reason. The worst part is /r/incels was banned as a result of the most blatant false flag post I've ever seen. A burner account post said he want to rape women's post and the sub gets nuked hours later. Seems it worked as AHS are now carpet bombing subs they don't like with CP on a regular basis. I would have called myself incel a year ago. Frequented sites such as R9K and WizGen. Wrote long angry texts. You get the idea. Then I had 6, and it was very disappointing. Like totally. Since then I don't care about pursuing women anymore. They have almost no relevance in my life anymore. But I'm glad that I had it. At least when someone asks if I'm virgin I won't have to lie anymore. So now I would call myself a varsal. How I feel about my previous self. IDK. He just didn't know any better. Now I just stick to machine gun jackhammering my death grip bloodshot semi-chub with my roided doomfist hente. Edit. I might have phrased that badly. When I say I don't give a chiz about women I don't mean that in a disrespecting way. Just in a purely non-sexual way. Like I was talking to some random bloke. You flipped Reddit's circle jerk on its head and they downvoted you for it Lomfeo. I just grew up. I was a ducking a hole and made this girl's life miserable. Basically bullied this girl back then. All just because she wouldn't be my girlfriend. I thought I was entitled to her because we were good friends. I was so emberied last year that I texted her and apologized. She said it was cool. We talk sometimes. I'm 19 now. I think I grew out of it maybe 2 to 3 years ago. Had sex for the first time a year and a half ago. It really made me feel like shiz and made me cringe to realize all the creepy and mean shiz I did in the beginning of high school. Sad stuff. Deleted. Your hot girlfriend vouched for you at a sex club and that's how you got confident with girls. Okay, but not super relatable to the fellas here. I wouldn't call myself an incel, but incredibly socially inept and not so good looking. I find it incredibly hard to talk to women because they all tend to seem uninterested or something. It also doesn't help that I have a terribly bad jawline as well. Like both my nose and jaw go to one side so there really isn't much for me to do except have a personality. But even that won't work when it's basically an uphill battle all the time. I wouldn't call myself an incel, just unattractive. So I generally just be nice to people and treat everyone the same. I at least have closure knowing that I wasn't some a-hole to random people for no reason. But everything still remains. I have attractive friends who find it way easier to talk to women with no effort and it kinda sucks when they orm that I can do the same or that I can relate to them, but I don't blame the men. You can't expect a free-spirited bird to just know the life of those shackled to the ground. Deleted. I dunno. I had a really nice sex life up until age 20. Then I had a 20-year dry spell. I could form close intimate relationships with women, but as soon as sex was introduced, it would end. I joined an incel online group, and I felt greatly alienated from them. Unlike many, I was older, and many of them were suffering from all sorts of social anxiety disorders. Many were on all sorts of public assistance. Many felt society owed them sex and love, and in fact, not all would disagree with the statement the government should aim really hot girls to be girlfriends with incels. I met the woman I'd marry, but sadly a few years later she's become disabled and we can't have sex. It's like a tragedy. I love her dearly and I'm grateful for her companionship. There's no one I'd rather be quarantined with. But the return to celibacy does bring open a lot of unresolved confidence and ego issues from that 20-year dry spell. Looking back on my 20-year spell, I did what I could to try. I kept dating. Unlike many, I improved my life through work. I learned things and created lasting friendships both with men and women. Why it happened, what I possibly did differently, I have no clue, except I did discover I had low testosterone and began taking medically supervised replacement therapy. My friends who know me state they see no difference in confidence that testosterone is sometimes reported as creating. I'm sad over the experience. I'm angry. My greatest fantasy is that I could have met my wife when we were younger, so we could have had more time without her disability. 4 years friends told me just hang in there, you'll meet someone, and while they were right, I never considered that there is an expiration date on a sex life. You will get older, get less vigor, and so will your spouse. I'm sad and to a degree angry I couldn't have more. But, who to blame? I'm big on taking responsibility for my failures, admitting them, improving, and moving on. But, I really don't know what I could have done wrong. Although there are a few women who I feel exploited my desire, I'd certainly not give the time of day. Sounds like you have / had issues with escalating to sex when alone with a woman. Some women will need more, so you can go with the flow, others are the opposite. When I was in 9th grade I had glees, braces and not a lot of self-esteem. At one point for some reason I stopped washing or trying anything with my hair. Yeah right EK either. I definitely looked at the super popular kids who were also rich and just disliked them for whatever reason I came up with. I would hate on girls, even the ones that talked to me a lot. I was a piece of chiz for a solid year. My saving grace was I got paired up with a very popular boy in my school, and he was the nicest person I had ever met. I went to his house to work on a project. Multiple popular girls who I had crushes on came by cause they lived in the same neighborhood and again very nice to me. I remember very specifically one of them asked me why I wore that same hoodie all the time, gave me some advice on dressing better. I went home that night and asked my mom if we could go shopping for different clothes. Now I didn't become the best of friends with all of them, but they gave the confidence to put myself out into other circles until I found some great friends and then eventually some great girlfriends. Sometimes the lesson is, hey, maybe if I dislike everyone and I'm always mad, maybe other people aren't the problem. Deleted. I can add my experience to this thread. I was never very successful with women growing up, no girlfriends in school. First GF I was 19, I never had any flings, and had just a short-term GFS in my life. At 19 and 26, I also first had sex at 26. I never knew exactly why I couldn't seem to attract anyone, as I always had good jobs, was responsible with money, not bad looking, was fit and active, dressed well, didn't view women as objects or hate them, and was a good-hearted guy. The women I met and developed feelings for just happened to not feel the same way apart from the two I dated briefly, and as hard as that always is to deal with, I couldn't feel mad at them. They didn't owe me their feelings just because I liked them. I was not one for going out to clubs and trying to hook up either. I was effectively celibate for 11 years until this past December. Now, although I never was resentful of women or felt that I was entitled to sex by any means, I also knew I was straying dangerously close to incel territory just by how alone I was and how unattractive I seemed to be. It would frustrate me seeing genuinely awful toxic men get to be with women and effectively ruin their lives. Having said that, I also knew that the whole women love a bad boy trope was not exactly legit. It's more a case of a guy being super charming and sweet and lowering the girl's guard. Then once they're together and she has strong feelings, he starts to reveal the chisty behavior. Because she's emotionally invested, he knows she'll put up with it. It's just textbook manipulation. My being alone led to me developing depression, which I suffered with for about 11 years. That obviously made me even more attractive. I fell for a girl I worked with during those dark years, and it was just awful. My broken mind had no healthy way of processing those feelings, and I just imploded. I ended up having a nervous breakdown at work and had to get signed off. Anyway, fast forward 5 years, and after countless unsuccessful Tinder dates, my good friend is telling me about his new GF and how amazing she is. Now, they like to swing and have threesomes/foursomes with other couples. He said after telling her about my history, she said she couldn't understand why I found it so difficult to even hook up with someone, let alone find a relationship. He then told me she said she'd duck me. I was like, thanks mate, that's kind of her to say. No, he replied, she will actually duck you. With me. Help me duck her? So, long story short, the next week my 11-year drought was ended by a threesome with my best friend and his girlfriend. And it was ducking glorious. If anyone wants that story, I'll happily tell you. It was the most wholesome threesome you could imagine. full of respect, asking for/receiving consent, and giggles. Couple weeks after that, he says he has a friend who is looking for some fun, if I'd be interested. Sure, I say, and gives her my number. Week after she messages me and then comes round and we have a fun night. And with that, I go from feeling like an absolute freak to a completely normal person. Looking back, I can only think my problem was confidence. Low self-esteem, which must have been obvious. I didn't know how to make that step and make a move on someone I liked. I was just too subtle and held back. I always felt that just one sexual experience was all I needed to sort myself out, and I know that I've had several. I was right. I'm a completely different person. My confidence is restored. I feel normal, my anxiety has gone, and I'm just more relaxed and happy within myself. The barrier has been broken. Now I know I'm sexually attractive to women. Meeting someone is not an impossible mountain to climb. I know I'll meet someone and have a fulfilling relationship now. It's just a matter of finding the right person. Sorry for the essay. It's literally the first time I've talked about my journey. Duck, I apologize for using that term. I have a buddy who's 37 and never had sex. IDK if he's even kissed a lady. But from listening to him, he seems to believe that he's not good enough for a good girl to want him. He also talks about it being special and all that, but has unreasonable high standards. Like there was a lady at his work who I thought was interested in him, but he just sets himself up to fail by being too shy and finding outs for himself. Oh no, she's got kids, oh she's not thin enough for me, and on and on. It doesn't help that he's really awkward normally, but I honestly think if he just tried to be real with them and lower his higher standards just a little bit, he could find a nice woman to be with. I became involuntarily celibate after I got married. Then you should work on your marriage a bit. I didn't consider myself an incel, but I always fell in love, gave too much of myself, but eventually in the end couldn't accomplish anything. But it was my fault, wasn't really taking care of myself, and I was obese, weighing at 130 kgs maximum. Now I'm 86. 4 kgs, in a relationship with a beautiful and sweet girl, and lost my card to her at 21. I'm 22 now. Basically just take care of yourself and love yourself more than you love others. Once you love you for who you are, everything else comes around. Also take care of your body. It tells other people how much you take care of yourself. I know looks aren't everything, trust me, but a little grooming, a proper diet and some exercise takes you a really ducking long way. I see my younger self as in severe need of help. Help I never got. Although I did get plenty of criticism that was about as useful to me as an instruction manual written in Chinese. I never blamed women for the fact I couldn't get a date when I was younger, but I definitely felt like something was very wrong with me back then. From my POV I was doing all the same things my dumber and meaner friends were, and yet they had lots of girlfriends, and I had none. I also had the mindset that was normal back then of if you like a girl you can get her to like you, that most movies, advice from other people, or you can get any girl you want bro type of guys would have you believe. So I spent pretty much all of my grade and high school years trying to get a handful of girls I really liked to like me back, which I think made me think dating was mission impossible. I also suffered from the girls like X type of advice that makes you think becoming X makes girls like you. It wasn't until I was older that I asked myself, what could a girl you don't like do to make you like her, and realized that all the beliefs and advice I had was bullshit, that my POV changed. Yes, I would think it was unfair that all these girls I liked ignored me, until I realized I was doing the same thing to the few girls that did like me. I used to think dating wasn't fair, and although I still think some people have much easier time than others, I've since realized we're all pretty much trying to do the same thing. And behaviors that I saw as unfair towards me, I was guilty of myself. So my expectations were off. The advice around me was god awful. I did have flaws, lots of them, but mostly I was too worried about my weaknesses rather than playing my strengths. Looking back, I spent a lot of those years hurt because although I didn't know what I was doing, I didn't realize everyone around me didn't know what they were doing either. If it's any advice I have for younger people is this: realize you're dating someone equally new to this, so don't take all the duck ups personally. I've never seen more facusals in a single thread. Good job Reddit. The concept of incels to me is the same as being weak-minded. If a woman can make you so mad to think that way, you are a mental midget. If you can't recognize your own jealousy and control yourself, you are weak. Yeah, being called ugly by girls, weak. Pathetic loser, bullied and beaten up by other students all the way since the age of 10, but it's because you are weak-minded. You have absolutely no idea what some incels go through. Incels are a reflection of the hate they received for no reason. Guy in his 30s here who used to be incel. Had sex a few times over the years, but still incel. On the very rare occasions when a woman seems initially at all interested, it only takes 1 or 2 times of hanging out before she gets bored with me and is suddenly too busy or just doesn't feel a connection. And yet, whenever I get close to someone and let them know about this problem in my life, they're always surprised and not, I think, in a way that's feigned. People I've met have always told me that I'm a great guy, that I'm among the kindest people they've met, that any woman would be lucky to have me. Friends close to me have told me that they think I'm good looking, and I don't believe these friends would have lied about that. I take good care of myself, and I've always been independent and followed my ambitions. And no, I don't believe that I'm entitled to sex or a relationship. But I do feel deeply sad to have faced almost nothing but rejection. I know that I would make a devoted and loving partner if someone were willing to accept me, but as the years go on, it seems less and less likely that it's in the cards. I think it's fair to say that I don't meet the stereotype of an incel. Yet for whatever reason, an incel, simply in the sense of someone who's involuntarily celibate, is what I've become. But now that it's become such a dirty word, it's difficult to tell anyone that without having them think you must deep down be a horrible person. I wish people would have more empathy and not make so many negative assumptions about someone for being an incel. Hey man, I want to share a couple of things with you. First, we have a magnetic button on my refrigerator that says logic has no place here. It's one of our favorite family quotes, so cool username. Second, I finally was married in my 30s, then had a few kids. The youngest was born when I was 41. There are some things I miss, like the stamina to run with kids, but for the most part, I think I enjoy kids and a family way more than I would have when I was younger. I just want to tell you that it can still happen. I met the most loving, caring, selfless person. She is wonderful. We celebrate our 15th anniversary in 12 days. Just keep being you. Think about other people and care for them. Genuinely. Love yourself and care for yourself. Make some good friends. It can still happen. Yeah, I've got this. It's a bit like empirical science. A lot of useless speculations disappear like morning mist in the sun when you apply, try, and fail again and again until you have some degree of success. It takes practice to be a human being, and some people postpone their practicing indefinitely. A big problem is that some people believe what they think other people think of them, i.e. they live in a prison built and maintained by themselves. 26-year-old KV incel. Used to swallow the black pill too. Came to realize my faults, and I'm working on them. That said, it is hard. People take for granted the mental wellness they get from being in a relationship. Nobody is entitled to a relationship, of course, but the human mind and body still needs it. I find it funny that a lot of normies are going crazy in quarantine, when that was my life pretty much for the past 5 years. Romantic relationships don't help that much. Having social relationships is much more important. I know plenty of people happy without a partner, but I don't know a single person happy without friends. Good on you for working on yourself. I 100% believe you can find a place where you are happy. I never considered myself an incel. That term had not been coined in my youth. A fake. I'm 46. Graduated high school in 1991. I was fat and awkward and physically disabled. Minor form of MD. No wheelchair or crutches, though. I was very smart and bookish. I had absolutely no idea how to talk to girls like the other guys did. I remember one time in my freshman year of HS, a girl told me that her friend liked me. I said tell her to tell me herself. Of course, neither of them ever spoke to me again. I became a fairly angry young man. Not just at women, though I was, but at men also. I like sports, but can't participate, and can't do/don't have interest in doing a lot of stereotypically masculine activities. Hunting, car stuff, hiking, being handy. I became really hateful of men, and to this day, I tend to form longer term and closer friendships with women. But I was resentful, and definitely had a dose of that nasegai attitude that we see all over. Why don't I deserve to be with you? I'm such a nice guy, and those guys are all ducking a-holes? Eventually, after quite a few years of stewing and simmering, I met a woman through my Zine. We connected, and eventually married. I softened quite a bit once I got happy, and in the intervening years, I grew a lot, had a lot of life experiences, met a lot of people. I'm a lot different than I was 25 years ago. I can absolutely empathize with the incel community, and the intersection of them with the internet as it is now is terrifying. I didn't have access to Reddit or message boards or any of that shiz. I had nobody to reinforce my hateful feelings. If I had had that, I could have turned out very differently. I worry about young men who are like I was, moving forward in time. Lost my V card to an escort when I was 20. I used to harbor very negative private feelings towards the female gender, and was dangerously close to going down the incel rabbit hole. I don't feel good about my decision, but it definitely cleared those feelings, and today I'm a feminist, I'm dating someone amazing, and have a close circle of mostly female friends. A few years ago I was in Amsterdam, and hired a few sex workers. The sex was great, don't get me wrong. But all it proved in the end was that I wanted more than just sex. I wanted, and still want, an actual relationship and everything that entails. I want to go on dates to weird stupid modern art exhibits, and laugh/lament that this is a state of New York City real estate. I want to say something nice or funny, see a girl's face light up a bit, and feel good knowing that I made the day better for someone I love. I want the kind of easy comfort of just lying on the couch together, watching a cheesy movie, and yelling at the screen, because all the characters are stupid. I just want to feel like I belong in the world, loved by someone who isn't obligated to do so by the accident of birth. I don't consider myself an incel, because I find their community, allies, and rhetoric to be absolutely disgusting, but I do have a lot of sympathy for their pain. I don't think wanting to feel connected to the rest of humanity is very much to ask, even if they are going about fixing their problems in the worst way possible. You seem like a compassionate person. What do you think is standing in your way of getting into a relationship? Deleted. Sex isn't going to change an incel. It's a state of mind, not whether or not your it got wet. Virgins and incels are the same thing. Mental illness isn't your fault, but it is your responsibility. Still an incel. Was extremely overweight in HS. I thought I was funny during HS. Found out through some self-reflection my humor was purely self-depreciating, and a little is healthy, but not the entire toolbox. I lost a lot of weight, actually love the gym now, it is my main hobby now. I stopped the self-depreciating humor, but now I'm just self-depreciating the entire time. When I talk about myself, I realize I'm more than likely depressed. I see no value in which I offer. I've tried to put myself out there, just been rejected at it, so the last couple years I've stopped trying. Couple of my closest friends are women, so I don't think I have any incel ideologies, but I might and may just be unaware. I realize a relationship is not an end all be all, but I feel like I'm missing part of the human experience, so it occupies my mind more than is probably healthy. Tried online dating, it was just really vain, and did a lot of damage to my self-esteem more than anything. No matches or no responses. I'm trying to focus more improving other areas of my life that have been severely lacking, and forget about romantic relationships, but has been easier said than done. This comment just turned into me venting. Thanks for reading. I think I needed to vent a little bit. Just a heads up for you, having sex doesn't cure self-proclaimed incels. When you're that deep into the rabbit hole that you're calling yourself one, your misogyny and entitlement are at terminal levels and the prognosis is grim. Clueless Redditors discussing mental illnesses. What did you expect from Facebook 2.0? I knew a guy who was involuntarily celibate, but not what I'd call an incel. He was my husband's roommate / best friend from college and eventually became my roommate. He was a virgin at 24, not that there's anything wrong with that, and had also never dated. He definitely felt sorry for himself, that nobody liked him etc etc. He was overweight and didn't take care of himself very much and was socially awkward. Well, he went to the doctors and discovered he had low testosterone. After giving himself shots on the regular, he actually started to really blossom. He started working out, took care of himself, and actually became confident enough to approach women. This was almost 10 years ago. His wedding was last fall. Would you like a female perspective? I'm sorry, it's not full incel. So I was an incredibly late bloomer. I was a shy teenager and had some bullying issues which led to me basically having little to no friends throughout my teen years. I liked boys, but never pursued them, because I didn't even have a friend. I'll be honest, I nevertheless really felt the bitterness and jealousy of people who were in relationships. I went to university without even ever being kissed. I had 2 other girlfriends who were the same as me. 0 relationship experience. All of us virgins. I actually knew a lot of virgins, since there were quite a few good Christian girls in my class, so I didn't feel too freakish in among my classmates, but it also did bother me. Anyway, so me and the other 2 girls went about it in different ways. I got it out of my system by partying and occasionally sleeping around. One would kiss random boys, but never go further, and the other has never been kissed to this day, mainly through fear. Many boys have said she's very attractive. But at 25 I had still never been in a relationship. I still held on to the bitterness and jealous feelings I had towards couples. I was even jealous of my flatmate, who kinda became an incel ironically, because at least he had an ex. Why was it so easy for everyone else? I had dreams of being married before 30, and I realized that I needed to come to terms that this wasn't going to happen. I genuinely believed that I was simply undesirable and will never be in a relationship. It just wasn't on the cards for me. So anyway, there was a friend of my flatmate who I didn't like and had some drama with. After some weird turn of events, we ended up together. We got married last year after 4 years together, 7 months before I turned 30. I still don't know how it happened. I went from forever alone to in a serious relationship within 6 months. I even moved to another country with him, and we have a house and 2 dogs. I'm very happy. But don't ask how it happened, because I don't know. I still think it's kind of odd that I have only been in 1 relationship, but that doesn't matter anymore. As for the other 2 friends, one I lost contact with and the other, as I said, still hasn't been kissed at the age of 29. She's not bitter or angry, but it does make her sad, and I really don't know how to help here. There are a lot more virgins out there than you think. The female not quite incel experience is extremely strange, and I feel isolated from men and women because of it. Men never want a relationship with me, and women don't understand. 26. Plenty of 6, but no one has ever wanted to date me. I'm not a great catch, but I feel like I'm good enough that someone should have wanted to date me for at least a few months. But no, I'm bitter and occasionally man-hating. But I've also been semi-altered by a man who I thought was my best friend. But I also know my lack of relationship is also partly my fault, although I'm unable to figure out what is wrong with me, since I've seen women with much worse personality traits than me getting BFS and getting married. So I also have that it's because of ugly mentality. It's a very weird, frustrating, and lonely place to be. I just hope I eventually stumble into a relationship like you did. I only consider myself to have been an incel in hindsight, since I would like to be sexually active, but I never really could be bothered to make any effort to get laid. Had some serious nice guy red flags, and essentially expected that it would happen eventually if I just kept interacting with girls. I just expected girls to take the initiative. I was lucky to recognize this nice guy mentality in myself after reading some articles on poor blogs and stopped being a pleaser, started working on myself, and dropped my unreasonable expectations. My contact with women dropped by 80%, but the interactions I did have were genuine and lead to me viewing women as individuals instead of sexual objects. Eventually, I learned to build meaningful relationships with women, and I've since been in a few relationships. I always had more like a friend relationships with girls, and then women, until I found someone with who things just went naturally. It's at this moment that I realized how bad I was acting all those years. I used to find somebody and become kinda obsessed over them, thinking about what it could be like to have a relationship with them when I went to sleep, dreaming about them. So in my mind, we knew each other very well. In reality, not so much. I was so surprised when I was getting rejected or so-called friend-zoned because I thought we were a perfect fit. As I once read, before a person friend-zones you, girlfriend/boyfriend zoned her/him first. At least I didn't discover the term incel at that time. Old me was a piece of chiz and full of hormones. Oh my, you watched until the end? That's fucking awesome, dude. Thanks for watching.